What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Tony Dolan, aka the Demolition Man of the almighty Venom Inc. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here.
Hey, thank you. Hi, everybody. Hello from London. Evening in London, and thanks you, Alex, for having me on. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Anytime, man. It's so awesome to have you here. We got There's Only Black coming out very soon, actually, as soon as the 23rd this week of this month. Did you just
Yeah,
consider this picking up where you left off after the previous album, Ave, or is this like a new beginning for Venom Inc. and you're stepping into like a new territory?
I think it's kind of a continuum, but it's also a new beginning. I mean, I think that we hadn't planned to do an album originally anywhere, and it was my beautiful friend John Sazula, who's sadly now gone, who and Chuck Billy, who convinced us to kind of you got to do an album when we just were touring, and the reason I kind of pulled back is because. There was such a legacy with the Venom material in total, plus stuff I'd done, Mantis had done, and I wanted to just perform music that fans hadn't heard. They'd all heard, when the bands had played certain places, but there was lots of territory the band hadn't got to. There was lots of music that had been undiscovered in a live situation, and I just kind of, as a fan of music and as a fan of fans and music, I wanted to dig deep and get stuff out and just let people hear everything. And if it worked with us doing it, then that's what it was about. It wasn't about the members of the band. It was about the idea of the whole Venom thing and about the music at the end of the day, because 40 years ago, someone writes a song and it's my song. 40 years later, it's not my song anymore. It belongs to the people. So I was into that whole thing. And it was not very complicated. We'd do a show, play a song, leave, and it would go like that. But albums bring their own kind of disharmonies, finances and pitching to record labels and publishing and who wrote what. And there's a whole thing that gets involved. And I tried to stay away from that. But eventually they convinced us to do RV. We did a couple of demos, myself and Mantis. We sent them to one label. I said, okay, this is the deal. If Nuclear Blast comes back and says no, we forget it. We carry on doing what we're doing live. And if they say yes, then we'll think about it. Of course, they said yes, and it was like shit. So we had to make an album. But so we had a lot more time to think about it, and we wanted to be creative with it, give it some atmosphere, give it some grandiose feeling to it. And that's hopefully what we did. With this one, Mantis had his heart attack, so he died and came back. So I guess he was questioning a lot of things in life and the validity and the shortness of your lifespan, where you think I've got forever when you're 16, and then you realize when you're 26, it's passing quickly. When you're 36, wow, that went quick. When you're 46, oh my God. When you're 56, it's like, wow, it's going too quick. So you start to kind of want to do everything that you intended to do in a shorter space of time. And I think then the pandemic hit. We had longer time to write, so we wrote 24 songs, but we just took our time with them. But I think the emphasis now was we played so much live. There was so much energy in the live show. There was so much energy with the people. I wanted to commit that to records so that when people put it on, they weren't just being displayed something. It wasn't just a presentation. It was like you were with us. You were in the car with us, driving fast with us, and it was all happening to you. And I wanted you to feel like you were in it. It was your band. You were alive. We were alive. We're all in the same gear. So I guess it became a much faster, more aggressive, more all just out. And the production was slightly different. We chose to pull back on a lot of stuff, have a bit more clarity, and just have the defining element being the power that's venoming. So if we played it, you hear it, and if it's powerful, it's because we were doing it as a band, So yeah, from that, it's a slightly different feeling.
Yeah.
And we didn't look back. We didn't try and do another RV. Everything is in the moment. Welcome to Hell, Blackmail, or Primeval, or any particular album you take from people. You're a particular age. You're 21. You're 25, you're 35, different experiences, different feeling, different motivations. So each thing should be its own element, and that's what we did.
Well, what I've noticed about your whole catalog, whether it would be with Venom or any of the other projects you've been involved with, it always seems like darkness is your ultimate source of inspiration. And I've always found it beautiful that you take all things dark and macabre and evil and you bring such a beautiful experience to it that does resonate with a lot of people. So, with all the projects, do you feel like you're expressing a different part of yourself with every project you've been involved in? Is it a different mindset, or is there a usual method behind the madness that applies to everything that you've done?
I think there's always a through line. There's always a method. I mean, what's always fascinated me is the light and shade, the light and the dark. Is like on the one hand, you have a neighbor, and you glance out your window. She's struggling to cross the street with her Lowe's bags, and she's an old girl. So you just run down and go, "Hey, let me give you a hand with that, Margaret," and you grab the stuff and you go up. On your way up, you see the guy next door has parked slightly further into your park bay instead of his, and you start slagging him off, fucking asshole, fucking wank. So you're the same person. You're just doing something really cool, but that other you just keeps coming up. And we suppress it a lot, And when people challenge authority or they demonstrate when they think they're being transgressed upon, that gets you up. If you take that too far, they end up smashing into a building with a weapon, and then you want to go fuck them up and blow everybody up. And all of a sudden now we've gone beyond, it's, and that's always fascinating me, that you would see that in the riots, when you had those riots in the US and people were burning the Black Lives Matter and all that kind of thing. I don't know, Antifa, I don't argue about all those points, but what I find interesting is you would have regular people seeing a whole lot of people smashing in windows to nick TVs, and you saw it in LA with the Rodney King, and you just go in there and nick one because you think, well, everybody's nicking one, but you're a law-abiding citizen, and you weren't protesting, and it was a right you were trying to get out of, but there's an opportunity there, and you think, well, why shouldn't I if everybody else is? That's what fascinates me. It's what makes you and I go into a store, and the storekeeper isn't there. I want to get some, candy and some smokes, and so do you. You just take the opportunity while he's in the back room to take them and run away. But I could do the same, but I don't. I wait until he comes back and then I pay for them. It's that kind of, is that something we learn, or is that inside us all the time?
I think with every bit of darkness you sing about, you're taking that opportunity, because I feel like Venom, all the work that you've done is the soundtrack to the darkest aspects of humanity. I mean, when you look at your think about when Venom started, think about how the world has taken the turn for the worse. You've experienced so much history, so much agony, so much pain, and it almost seems like you take that opportunity to take that darkness and make it yours and express it your own way. But does your personal life or does your personal experience also influence the music? Because by going as Demolition Man, part of me wonders if maybe you portray an element outside of who Tony Dolan is in a way.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that's really, really eloquently put by you. I think, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head with a hammer there. I think it's like, when I used to go to punk shows when I was young, I'd go in there as a teenager and there'd be these 20-something-year-old skinheads and stuff, and I'd come up and they'd kick the motherfucking shit out of me. I'd lose my shit at this Angelic Upstart show, or stiff little fingers. I'd come out with bruises and everything. As soon as my old man saw me, be like, "You've been fighting again. What have I told you about fighting?" I go, "No, I went to a show." He's going, "What kind of show is that?" But for me, it was all of those suppressed anger and all those questions you ask yourself, like where do I fit in, why am I on my own, why does nobody get me, all those teenage angst questions you have. I could go to a show and I didn't badmouth my old man because he'd give me a good old slap, but I could go to a show and go and as total strangers I could just be fighting with and jumping around, and I'd come out exhausted but very happy. Nobody ever came out of a Venom show that I saw, or an extreme metal show, or a black metal show or a punk show not happy. You know, they all come out feeling elated about the whole thing. And it's because we get a chance to exercise ourselves. The demons we have inside, the anger we have inside, the frustration we have inside, we can forget about everything and just let go, let rip, you know? And I remember we played New York once and I was going on stage and the guy said to me, Gramercy or Webster Hall, and the guy said, don't forget there's a curfew. And I said, okay. And he went, so it's a hard curfew. I said, okay, what's a hard curfew? And he said, when it gets to 10:30, that's it. And I was like, right, what if we're not finished? He went, you have to be. And I said, but what if we're not? He said, but you have to be. That's a hard curfew. And I said, okay. So what time's a hard curfew? 10:30. We came off stage at 10 to 11. And the guy was going, I thought you said you were going to come off stage. I went, no, you told me what time the hard curfew was. I never.
That happened at Gramercy yesterday. That happened at Gramercy last night. I was there for Lacuna Coil both nights, and and they didn't stop playing. I think it was over by like 11:15 the show or something like that. It was amazing. So I totally agree with you. Like
it's the thing. My theory on that was the fact that, listen, you know, we can't park there. We have to get the tube at this time. We have to get our last train, our first train. We can't do this. We can't do that. We have to do this. We do that every day of our lives. So you're telling me for like 2 hours, concept, we still have to find a rule. Can we not just be free for one night to just do what the fuck we like? We're only having fun. It's not like, you know, we're not plotting anything. We're just having fun.
Exactly.
So that's why I go, there's only one rule tonight. And that is, there's no rules. No rules tonight. We can have rules tomorrow morning before you go to work.
Well, you actually led me perfectly into the next question, too, because, you know, while darkness clearly is a great subject matter and always makes, you know, I've always said when the world is at its worst, art is at its best. But do you find when you have to rely on, you know, so much negativity in the world, because the Venom Inc. show, when I've seen you guys play, it's always fun, enjoying, there's camaraderie and there's community. But when you're using this darkness as a fuel for your creativity, does that at all maybe make the songwriting process a little deteriorating in a way? Do you almost feel like you intentionally make yourself suffer for the creation of your art?
I see your point. And that's a really incredibly cool question. Yeah. But no, I think that I don't think we consider the songs are quite personal, you know, and it's like a classic example is, Every Breath You Take by Sting. You know, people had to play that at their wedding. They love that song. And even Sting goes, it's about his ex-wife who was, you know, kind of following him all over and threatening his life because she was like losing her shit. So it's actually about a stalker, his wife who was a stalker. But yet people think it's a beautiful song and they went, oh, we have that at our wedding and it's such a, that was our first dance. And he's like, okay. So it's kind of, what do you get from it? What does it say to you? And it may be a completely different meaning to you than it is to the person next to you and to the person who composed it. So I think that, keeping that in mind, the compositions are always approached from a personal aspect. What do I find interesting? What kind of darkness in the corner of the room am I looking at? What's behind that door? What's behind this? Not in a conspiratorial way, but in a meaningful way. They said this and it looks like this, but what does it really mean in terms, to me, that affects me? And of course, then I think when you present that as a finished product, I think you're trying to communicate, and some people will grab it and go, I know exactly what that is, and they'll feel that, you know. And sometimes it's for fun, and so they say that fun side of it, you know, that quirkiness, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, like that's a rude thing to do or say or whatever. And other times they really latch onto it, and it means something in their life, you know. And so that's what you're always trying to do through performance. I don't think it's manipulated, and it's not something that you try and create. It's a level of honesty. It's like, this is how I feel, but how do you feel about that? And maybe they'll respond to that. Maybe someone in the audience will just hear the song, just like to sing along and just feel that. And you have story composition like Countess Bassery or something like that. You know, but then you have something deeper meaning like Ave Satanas. Is that about Satanism? Is that about praising Satan? Or is that about going, what does what does that represent? It represents non-conformity. It represents true freedom, a freedom of spirit, freedom of design, freedom to choose, all those things that we're told we have, but we don't really have. You know, you live in America, land of the free. We live in England. We're pretty free, are we? But I have to pay a federal tax. I have to pay local tax. I have to pay my utility bills. They fucking change them whenever they want. When I buy gas, I don't control how much I pay for gas.
Yeah.
They tell me how much I'm paying for gas. Then I have to turn up at work on time. Then I have to make sure I pay. You know, so we're constantly being manipulated. And our freedom is the fact that we can then go out to a show with the money we earn. Brilliant. And then you get to a show and they said, by the way, it's closing at 10:30. Because we have an ordinance in place, so it's all over by then. It's like, so even when I'm free, I'm kind of free, but as long as you can give me that window where my freedom sits in. I mean, so, you know, I think I'm always looking at those things. And some people get it on a deeper level, and some people get it on a less deeper level. Some people just want to scream die hard and just smash their heads around. That's great too. So you're kind of working on two levels. One, to entertain and possibly to maybe inform, not on a political level, not about, you know, I don't want to teach you anything. It's like all this stuff is stuff we already experience. I just want to share it with you. This is what I feel. This is how I see it. How do you see it? So,
I think, but what I think is great is that you teach your fans and your audience about themselves, because the darkness that you express through your music wouldn't have been experienced unless they put on your album. And that kind of led me into the next question I wanted to ask you, because, you know, you have such an expansive career. I mean, not to make you feel old, but like just this year alone is 30 years of the Wastelands. And like, you know, you compare, you see how much has evolved.
Amazing.
Do you think that the music that you write and the albums that you make are just a snapshot of who Demolition Man was at that time? Or do you think that maybe your albums could evolve with you and the meaning could evolve with you as you evolve over time?
I think some of the things, the Way of Sounds in particular, was a very story-themed album. So it was all about, you know, stories in a way, you know, that from the you know, from Curse to Jesus Christ to Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Riddle of Steel with Conan the Barbarian. So it was very, very theme based on that. Less about the individual. The albums before that was slightly different. Parasite, Carnivorous was all about that lust and that greed and that control, you know. But again, you could look at those songs and not take that same meaning. You know, Sons of Satan, you know, even from Welcome to Hell, which became anthemic for Venom Inc., playing at the end of shows that I would dedicate it to everybody else, because I'd say, you know, this is about your individuality. When you're outside, when you're in this group in here now, we all are brothers and sisters, or theys and thems. We all support each other. If you fall down, we all pick you up. You know, we're all one entity, and we may go away into our isolated self lives, but we're all still here every day. We just aren't seeing each other, but never feel that you're alone. And so, the idea of Sons of Satan is, you know, playing on that emotion that you have piercings, you have tattoos, you probably do drugs, and you probably kill chickens, and you probably listen to horrible music. So therefore, you're probably really bad. And yet, our community is one of the more supportive and enlightened and communicative and friendly communities on the planet, you know, through metal. I mean, all forms, you know, black metal, hardcore, grindcore, death metal. I mean, you know, we all hold our hands out. And there we have, you know, bands like, you know, obviously Arch Enemy, but then you have Ginger, Krita, Nervosa. You know, we have female-fronted bands all over, playing every single style. We don't not go and see them because we go, well, that's a girl doing it. You know, and there may be a lot more males involved in the sport, but there's loads of females too. And now, so we don't see anything. To fucking hell, Rob Halford came out as gay. You get a ticket for the next Judith Fish show. You're not going there going, well, the singer's gay. We don't care.
Absolutely.
We don't care, you know. Look at Jolene Turner, just, is it Jolene Turner who just took the wig off, you know? And he was wearing a wig all the time, and he feels liberated now, and it took him forever. He had a personal struggle just because he was wearing this wig. You know, people going, what do you think about Jolene Turner taking his hair off? And it was like, look at me.
Who gives a shit? You know?
It's like, who gives a shit? Have you heard his voice, you know? But to him, it was kind of a revelation that he took it off, and he struggled to do that. and then nobody cared. Nobody cared, and that's what I love about that thing. So I think maybe that they are, from a personal point of view, each album is a moment in time for me at that stage, what I was being influenced by, how I felt, what I wanted to say. And I think, Wastelands is a classic example. Right then, I was in a good, harmonious place. So I just wrote about things I enjoyed around me. I picked the fruit, if you like, and talked about movies and symbolism that I enjoyed. But if you think about something like Primeval or previous albums to that in the earlier 80s, it was very frustrating, very angry, anti everything, and anti, corporation, so yeah, it depends on your age, depends on where you are, depends on what you want to say. As a 20-year-old, everything sucks. Everybody's talking a load of bollocks, and you know better, and you're not listening. By the time you get to like nearly 60, I'm like a year off 60. I have the same angst, the same anger, but I understand a lot more now that I didn't end. So now I can actually explain what I'm talking about. Whereas a 20-year-old to go, well, what do you mean? Go, I don't want to talk about it. I don't know, but I just don't trust anybody. Now I know why I don't trust people. So
exactly.
that's the difference.
Heavy metal, the way I describe Venom Inc., evil music for good people. That's how I describe your music.
Yeah, absolutely. Bush. Yeah, you got it. That's it. That's it.
And the final question I wanted to ask you about your songwriting process and your inspiration. In order to get that creative energy, that spark, that fire to create, do you almost have to like put yourself in a certain place? Do you have to like look for inspiration? Or do ideas kind of like strike when you least expect them, when you don't know what to expect?
Well, for me in particular, I think for Mantis it's a bit different. He's always writing music, so he's always composing and listening to the harmonies, and he's in the studio all the time putting ideas down. And he plays around until the ideas come, and then once he has the ideas, then he thinks lyrically what he wants to say. And nearly everything he does is from a personal, first-person perspective. Teacher's Pet, for example, a Teacher's Pet was about a guy in his class in school who was caught masturbating, so you can't get that. That's what the story's about. So on the new album, Burn Liar Burn, Don't Feed Me Your Lies, or from a personal aspect about an individual we know, and he wanted to express himself. For me myself, it's like I've always been a purveyor of the music itself. I let the music come to me. It just comes to me. If I'm searching for it, it just writes itself. And then once it's made the composition and I put it into its true form, so I have it, lyrically, it does the same thing. I will play the music, and it tells me what's to write down. We did a track called, several tracks on a couple of Venom albums, and I went into the studio. I think it might be on Temples of Ice. I went in there, and it was a vocal day, and the engineer who was producing and engineering said, okay, we're going to do vocals here, set everything up. And he went, okay, do you want to give me a copy of the lyrics? And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And so I said, okay, do you want to roll it? And he went, yeah, but give me a copy of the lyrics. I went, I haven't got the lyrics. And he was like, well, where are the lyrics? I said, they haven't come yet. I said, but when I've sung them, I'll write them down and you can have a copy. He was like, so you don't have any lyrics for any songs? I went, no. He said, well, how are you going to record vocals? I said, because the music will tell me what to say. And I sat there with a pad. He played the first phrase of music until the word came, and then I started to write, and okay, I recorded that, move on to the next thing. So it was almost as if, my daughter's doing a university course as an artist, a digital artist and a cartoon artist, and she's brilliant. And she was doing a painting on a canvas. And I said, what's amazing is when I sit down to draw on a canvas, I'll have, my charcoal or my pencil, and I think about what I'm going to draw, and then I start to do the lines, and I'm trying to discover the picture. But when my daughter does it, it's almost like she just does it automatically, as if the picture's already there, and all she's doing is removing the white. Like the picture's already there, she's just scrubbing away the shit so you can see it. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of a reverse, and it's kind of how I approach the songs. It's like, I don't know what the lyrics is because I haven't heard the song yet. once I hear the song, I'll tell you what the lyrics are. And that's the process I use. The music has the lyrics, the music has the intent, the music has the atmosphere, and the music knows what it wants to say. So it tells me what to write down, and that's how it works.
It seems like the music writes you, and then it writes you, and then you're able to write to the music. It seems like it's a circle.
I'm kind of like the conduit, you know. It tells me what to tell you, and so I just tell you because that's what it told me to say. It's like having a voice in your head, except not one of those mental ones that puts me on death row.
I would certainly hope not.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for such a great conversation. Is there just anything else with Venom Inc. that you would like to promote for the release of this brand new album? We'll be seeing you on the road very soon, right?
Very, very soon. Well, of course, we've got the American tour. I don't remember the dates, but maybe I will be so kind as to put the link up and so you can see the dates. But we're coming to New York City. I cannot wait.
I'll be
One
there.
of my favorite places, you know. And yeah, the album's out this Friday, 23rd, you know, on all formats and streaming, and the merch will be dropped the week after. So, yes, 12 tracks. On the vinyl version, it's split over 2 discs, so you don't have to chunk it all in one go if you don't want to. And on the CD, it runs like an hour. But it's like putting yourself into a motor vehicle and putting your foot down and forgetting the speed limit. So make sure you put your seatbelt on. But I hope you enjoy it. I look forward to seeing you guys, and thank you, Al, so much for having me on. So
Anytime.
Brilliant.
I describe There's Only Black as an hour-long killing spree. That's how I like it, and I can't wait.
Yeah, that's what we like.
And
Thank
I can't
you so
wait
much.
to see you at Gramercy Theater. Thank you so much, everybody. Demolition Man of Venom Inc. There's Only Black out via Nuclear Blast on September 23rd. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.
Awesome. See you guys.